Hey everyone, we haven't made a video breaking down high-level laning in a while for mid lane, but after seeing Chovy dominate a Korean challenger Zoe on stream, we had to make one. He smashes the Zoe without jungle help, without ignite, and best of all, he's on Orianna, a champion that's quite weak right now. The concepts we're going to break down will apply to almost any champion though, so you don't have to worry if you don't play these two. With that being said, let's get started. Before laning even starts, Chovy sees his jungler Talon get invaded and is slept by Zoe Bubble. This is a really big deal that will be abused to its fullest at a rank like this, but in lower elo it never is. Basically, since Zoe started E instead of Q, that makes level 1 totally in Ori's favor, and whoever wins level 1 basically controls the lane for the first 3 levels. You'll see what I mean in a sec. Anyways, getting into the laning. Right away, Chovy starts auto-attacking the first melee minion before trying to hit Zoe with his Q. He wants to try and pop Mana Flow and Airy every time they are off cooldown. Sadly, he missed this time. All of those auto attacks had a purpose though, as he wants to have the push advantage. Normally, Zoe would have Q, and it makes getting the push much harder. Since he doesn't have it, he doesn't have to spam autos anymore. Now, a fundamental concept when it comes to laning that I'm sure you all have heard before is that you want to use abilities when they go for last hits. This is because they will be in an auto animation when they go for it, right? There are other benefits, but let's focus on this one for now. Chovy is going to apply this same concept, but by predicting when Zoe is going to auto the wave, since she is also trying to auto as much as possible to get the push advantage. If we pause, you can see his mouse is on her, ready to use Q right as she starts this auto animation. Really clean stuff. This might seem small, but this is what laning phase is about, a bunch of small things like this adding up. After this, he's going to collect his first CS, and then we have another important concept to talk about that he is going to use throughout the entire laning phase. This one is especially important in low elo. We always get questions like, how do I ever jump in on Ahri when she never uses Charm? Basically, how do you go in on a champion when they don't use their most important ability? Zoe E is one of those important abilities, and this concept is the answer to your problem. First, pay attention to where Chovy is standing right now, and the minion that is low in between him and Zoe. Him and Zoe are both paying attention to this minion, since Zoe is looking for windows to land her E, and Chovy knows when that dies, she might try to throw her E through there. Once it dies, watch how Chovy moves, directly towards the Zoe, in the gap where there are no minions to block her bubble. He only walks at her for half a second though, and then he preemptively clicks to go behind this minion. This was all to try and bait out the Zoe bubble. And notice he didn't try and react to her throwing it, it's a prediction. If you try and react, it will be too late. This concept is important because obviously he could just stand behind minions the entire lane and never get hit by Zoe Bubble, right? But then she would never throw it, and it would be hard to approach her and be aggressive to contest her CS. This is what you need to do versus things like Ahri Charm or LeBlanc Chain, Illaoi E, Kennen Q, etc. You want to stay behind minions most of the time, but run out and preemptively run back behind them to try and bait their abilities. It didn't work here, but you will see him do this the entire lane. Right after that, we have another fundamental concept to laning, and this one has an infinite skill ceiling. Even the best players in the world are constantly improving at this. The simple term would be spacing. Spacing while contesting CS is extremely hard, especially at a high level. Chovy sees Zoe is going to go for that last hit, and Chovy doesn't have any last hits to go for himself, and he has his ability up, so he wants to contest. So he walks up to here. This is max range of Zoe Bubble. This is what you're aiming for when trying to space properly. You want to be at max range of their abilities, so they want to use it, but since you're at max range, you can back up as it's traveling so you don't get hit. As Zoe approaches him, he quickly turns to hit her with Q, then clicks back like this, and just barely outruns the bubble. That's perfect spacing, isn't that beautiful? That's what good laning looks like. Now that Zoe E is down, Chovy wants to look to land his ability. You can think of League as a turn-based game sometimes. When one champion's abilities are down, their turn ends and it's the other person's turn. Obviously it's more complicated than that based on matchups and cooldown timers, but he runs up and hits her with his Q and grabs the CS at the same time. Then, as the next wave arrives, pay attention to how he moves back like this first, then how early he clicks the Zoe. This is to buffer the auto, so the moment she walks into range, he will auto her. This just makes sure she doesn't sneak in any autos for free. And the way he positioned himself by walking back made it so she will take aggro from the 2 range minions he had left over from the first wave, so he wins this small trade easily. On top of that, he actually brought bone plating, which he makes sure to use efficiently almost every time like this. After that, since he has the push advantage, he's going to hit level 2 first, and the moment he hit it, he walks up to punish Zoe if she walks in range of his Q, but she respects it and backs off. Then he's going to be applying both of these concepts from earlier we talked about. Spacing wise, look at how he's putting himself in a spot where if Zoe walks up, he can easily just move the ball over and punish her. And he's making sure to stand in this gap to make her think she might be able to land a bubble. Just like before, he moves the ball, hits her with Q and W, and runs out of range of the bubble, making her waste it again and take some damage. Zoe hits level 2 at the same time, so he keeps his distance while he collects CS. She has her Q now, but we can see Chovy really abused Zoe for her E star. He got the push advantage and won every trade easily. Anyways, Zoe used her Q for a last hit right there, so now he walks up again knowing she has no abilities. As the next wave arrives, Zoe uses her Q to hit all of these minions, and this is what she could do at level 1 to contest the push. That's actually Zoe's main game plan at pretty much all points in laning. She wants to push with Q, then when you don't have minions, that's when her bubble is easier to land, and she can look for Q with R poke from outside of vision. But since she used Q, he wants to try and contest her CS now, but is still using the same concept for the bubble. Pay attention to how he's clicking. But once Chovy uses Q, he has to back up again since he can't do anything to Zoe until it's back up. They both hit level 3 now, and Chovy decided to go 2 points into Q instead of taking a point in E. This obviously gives him more damage on the Q, but if he got hit with a bubble, he could potentially get one shot. Now, if you look at this blue minion that is getting low, both Zoe and Chovy are paying attention to it. Chovy knows Zoe is going for it, so he's contesting it. Contesting doesn't just mean looking to poke them or do damage. You can contest a CS with just some movement. You would be very surprised the pressure it puts on a low elo player when you're walking at them every time they want to get a CS. They will give up last hits even when you have no abilities up because they are scared. But Chovy does land his Q as she goes for it and quickly runs behind her minions in case she was going to throw a bubble through it. Then he's going to collect some last hits while waiting for Q to come back up. As this cannon walks into tower range, it's the same scenario we just saw, where he's contesting the last hit and staying out of the bubble range right after. And if you noticed, he didn't use W for either of these, he only hit her with Q. This is because on Ori, if you don't take Corrupting Pot and Cookies, using 70 mana for the low amount of damage W does this early isn't very efficient. You will run out of mana very fast. So he wants to poke her mainly with Q, and as Zoe gets lower, he might start throwing in some Ws depending on how much mana he has. But anyways, for this next CS, it's the one with Zoe Balloon on it. It's very important he tries to contest this CS. If he puts pressure on her and she misses, that's a huge deal as Zoe W is dumb and a good drop from the minions can make a massive difference in how the lane goes. He uses the same concept though as before and runs back behind his wave right as she goes to throw the bubble and the bubble hits the minion. See how well it works? Now that Zoe is no E, Chovy wants to walk up and abuse this, so he throws his Q and this time uses W. He knows she's out of position now and he has a decent amount of mana left so he can use it. This brings us to another concept though. When you're winning lane like this, you need to know when you can go for even more aggressive trades that might not even be a favorable one, but you have more health to use. Basically, in this example, Chovy has 2 potions left and is basically full health. So even if he traded 50% of his health for 20% of Zoe's, that's favorable for Chovy since he has the potions and Zoe doesn't. That's the first reason he can just run into her wave like this. The second is, he's using the bone plating here. It makes Zoe Q do basically 0 damage, it looks like. Also, he pops his first potion right as Zoe Q hits. He knows he's going into her wave, but he doesn't want to hold them and drop to half health or something where he's gankable or killable by Zoe. He's just using his resources. You see how he basically lost that trade but it didn't matter? Now Zoe is forced to leave the lane and take a bad recall. At this level, this actually means she straight up loses the lane here. But let's keep watching a little bit. First, he's going to push the wave as fast as possible and reset. He buys boots and a tier, then TP's back to lane. He didn't need to use TP, as in he wasn't really going to miss CS, but it lets him get to lane and start pushing again right away. Remember, Zoe's win condition in lane is to push, and he won't let it happen. Right away, he's pushing the wave, and hits Zoe with Q and W as she walks up. Zoe used her Q here on the wave because of what her win condition is. Both players are going to constantly auto and basically are fighting for the push advantage. Chovy is using his autos primarily on the wave and his abilities to poke Zoe and punish her for using Q. Notice here after Chovy grabs this last hit how he's applying the same concept from earlier. He's trying to bait the bubble again and he uses the cannon to body block the Q. As soon as Zoe autos the cannon, he's already running behind the wave and it baits the Zoe E once again. It's the same concepts over and over. This time though, she made a really big mistake. She went for this when she had no minions left. So now all of Chovy's minions are going to hit her, and right as she threw the bubble, he hit her with Q and W. Whenever the enemy laner walks up when you have ranged minions like this, you want to beat them down because they have to back away and not trade. These minions will do a lot of damage. Chovy of course knows this, so he's going all in now that Zoe doesn't have E. This is why it's so important to try and bait it. It leaves windows like this to punish, and it's safe to say he definitely punished Zoe here. Now the aggression is turned to 11. Zoe basically made a lane losing mistake when she was already losing, and now Chovy has a tier so he can spam abilities more without having to worry about the mana cost. He contests every CS either with an ability or just by moving towards Zoe, and she misses a lot of them because of it. Also, if you've been wondering about ganks, Chovy hasn't been killable at all. The enemy jungler is Kha'Zix, who would have no chance of killing him when he's full health and has minions. Chovy hasn't even bothered to ward. Anyways, Chovy keeps doing the same thing, contesting CS with abilities while staying near minions, and Zoe is once again out of potions and low health. At this point, Zoe basically has two options: take another bad recall, which puts her really far behind, or somehow try to survive long enough to get a good recall, somehow. Obviously, option 2 sounds like it would never work, right? It really doesn't, but 99% of high elo players would make that choice here because they know how doomed it is if they recall now. So we can't blame Zoe when she dies here. One last time though, look at how he goes for the kill. Walks up behind this melee, uses his abilities, and dodges the bubble preemptively. He knows Zoe is going to try and bubble him here, but all it does is get her killed. Alright, this was an extremely clean laning phase from Chovy. He only lost a trade when he had so many potions he could afford to lose it. He never let Zoe push. He didn't get hit by a single bubble. He solo killed her without ignite and without buying combat stats on his first buy. He only got mana and move speed, no AP. That's very impressive and hard to do, especially in Korean Challenger. All of these concepts work in your games too, they just take practice. Alright guys, before we wrap this up, let's tell you a little more about Skill Capped. So, we offer a 5-division rank up guarantee, and think that's a pretty crazy thing to offer. It's like a gym membership guaranteeing you'll get ripped. Your local gym would go bust if they offered that, right? Not us. We've offered this for years because our service really does work. It works so well, in fact, that we're able to produce by far the largest catalog of premium league guides on the internet. We add over 20 videos a week, with over 1,600 guides curated into over 100 courses no one can compare. We've also sent Challenger players into ELO Hell 714 times and counting, where they commentate how to carry live. They also respond to all questions asked. Sign up today for as little as $6.99 a month if you are serious about improving. But that's going to bring us to the end of this video. We hope you enjoyed, and thanks for watching.